Your doghouse is warmer than the street. The rich CEO couldn't believe his ears. One evening, a little girl sat on the cold street. She wore a red sweater. But it was too thin for the freezing night. She hugged her knees, shivering, and looked weak. Near her house stood a doghouse. Inside it, the dog lay on a soft blanket. Warm and safe, the girl whispered, "That doghouse is warmer than the street." A black car stopped nearby. A rich CEO, Adrian Cole, stepped out. He saw the girl and asked, "Why are you here? Where are your parents?" The girl softly said, "I don't have parents. I live on the street." Adrian was shocked. He suggested, "You should go to a shelter." The girl looked at the doghouse and said, "Your doghouse is warmer than the street." The words hit him hard. He couldn't believe what he heard. His dog lived better than this child. "What's your name?" Adrian asked. "Lena," she replied. "Come inside, Lena." "At least for tonight," Adrian said. Lena hesitated, then followed him. Inside the house she saw warmth, food and safety. She ate quickly when given soup and bread. Soon, she slept under a blanket. Adrian stood near the window remembering her words. For the first time, he wondered how many children were outside in the cold. His life was about to change. The next morning, sunlight entered through the large windows of Adrian Cole's mansion. The house was quiet except for the sound of the golden retriever's paws on the wooden floor. Adrian walked into the living room, and saw Lena still sleeping on the couch, her face half hidden under the blanket. She looked peaceful. But her small body showed she had suffered much. For a moment Adrian stood silently. He was not used to strangers in his house. Especially not a little girl with no family. But the memory of her words came back to him again. "Your doghouse is warmer than the street." He sat on the chair near the couch, waiting for her to wake up. A few minutes later, Lena opened her eyes. She looked around, confused, as if she thought it had all been a dream. When she saw Adrian, she quickly sat up. "You're safe," Adrian said in a calm voice. "Did you sleep well?" Lena nodded slowly. "Yes, thank you. Are you hungry?" he asked.
Yes.
Adrian called Mrs. Green, and soon Lena had a plate of eggs, bread, and warm milk in front of her. She ate quietly, but Adrian noticed the speed in her hands. Children who lived on the streets always ate like that, afraid the food might disappear. After breakfast, Adrian leaned forward. "Lena, tell me honestly. How long have you been on the streets?" Lena lowered her head. "Since last winter. My parents, they both got sick. We had no money for doctors. They didn't survive. After that, nobody wanted me. I ran away from the foster home because the other children were cruel. I've been moving from place to place, sleeping wherever I could." Her words were simple, but they cut like knives. Adrian had always believed the world was harsh in business, but hearing about a child's battle for survival felt worse. "Do you go to school?" he asked. Lena shook her head. "No. I can read a little. But I don't go to school anymore." Adrian sighed. He felt a weight pressing on his chest. He was a man who lived in luxury, with more money than he could ever spend. Yet right in front of him was a girl who had nothing. He stood up and said firmly, "You can't live on the street anymore. Stay here. I'll make sure you have food, clothes, and a bed." Lena's eyes widened. "Really, you'll let me stay?" Adrian nodded. "Yes, but you have to promise me one thing, you must study. I'll arrange for a tutor or a school, you deserve a future, Lena." For the first time, Lena smiled. It was a small shy smile, but it lit up her face. "I promise." Just then, the dog ran to Lena, wagging his tail. Lena laughed softly and hugged him. Adrian watched them together, and something inside him softened. Later that day, Adrian went to his office. The tall glass building reflected the sun, and employees greeted him respectfully as he walked in. But his mind was not on the numbers or meetings. He kept thinking of Lena's words. During the board meeting, one of the directors said, "Sir, we need to expand the hotel chain to another city. It will bring millions in profit." Adrian's eyes narrowed. For the first time, profit did not excite him. He interrupted, "How much do we spend every year on charity?" The room went silent. The directors looked at each other confused. Finally, one of them replied, "Very little, sir. Just enough to maintain the company's image." Adrian tapped the table slowly. "That changes today. From now on, we will allocate a portion of our revenue to real causes. Children, shelters, education. I want this company to be known not only for money, but for humanity. The directors were shocked. Some tried to argue, but Adrian's voice was firm. This is not up for debate. Meeting adjourned. When he returned home that evening, Lena was sitting in the garden with the dog. She looked happier, though still shy. Adrian joined her and asked, "How was your day?" "I played with him," Lena said, pointing to the dog, "and Mrs. Green gave me a new sweater. It's warm." Adrian smiled. "Good. Tomorrow we'll go shopping. You need proper clothes and shoes." Lena's eyes sparkled. "Can I really choose?" "Of course," Adrian said. That night, as Adrian sat by the fire with a book in his hand, Lena suddenly spoke. "Why did you help me?" Adrian looked at her. The flames reflected in his eyes as he answered slowly. "Because your words opened my eyes. You made me see something I had ignored all my life. Money and success mean nothing if children like you are left in the cold." Lena tilted her head. "Do you think other people will listen if you tell them?" Adrian thought for a moment. "Maybe. Or maybe they won't. But I will try. If one child can open my eyes, maybe others will listen too." Lena nodded, then curled up under the blanket. Soon she was asleep. Adrian watched her for a while and whispered, "I don't know why fate brought you to my gate, Lena. But maybe it was meant to be." He realized something new that night. His empire had given him power, but it was this small girl's simple words that gave him purpose. The next morning, Adrian kept his promise. He took Lena to the shopping mall. For Lena it was like stepping into another world. She looked at the glass doors, the bright lights, and the shelves full of clothes as if she had entered a palace. "Choose what you like," Adrian said. Lena hesitated. "Can I really?" "Yes. Everything you need. Clothes, shoes, books." Slowly, Lena touched the dresses hanging on racks. She picked a blue coat, warm boots and a small backpack. Adrian noticed she never reached for the most expensive things. She chose simple, practical items, as if afraid to take too much. When the cashier packed everything, Lena whispered, "Thank you." Adrian gave her a small smile. "You don't have to thank me for basic needs, Lena. Everyone deserves warmth and comfort." They returned home, and Lena ran to her room. The guest room Adrian had asked Mrs. Green to prepare. She spread her clothes on the bed, admiring them like treasures. For the first time, she felt like she belonged somewhere. That evening, Adrian sat with Lena at the dining table. He wanted to understand her better. "Lena, do you have any dreams?" he asked. She looked thoughtful. "Dreams? Yes. What do you want to be when you grow up?" Lena played with her spoon before answering. "I want to help children like me. I don't want them to sleep on the street. If I can, I'll make a place for them with beds, food, and books." Her words touched Adrian deeply. "That is a noble dream," he said softly. "And you will achieve it. I'll help you." Lena's eyes shined, but she said nothing. She had learned not to trust promises easily. Still, something in Adrian's tone made her believe, at least a little. The next day, Adrian visited one of his hotels. As he walked through the lobby, he saw guests checking in, staff working hard, and business running smoothly. But his thoughts were elsewhere. He called his assistant. "Schedule a meeting with the city council," Adrian ordered. "I want to discuss a new project." "What kind of project, sir?" "A shelter. A proper one for children. Not just a roof, but a place with food, safety, and education." The assistant looked surprised but nodded. "I'll arrange it." Adrian realized something important. Building hotels and malls had given him power. But building a shelter would give his life meaning. At home, Lena had started reading storybooks that Mrs. Green found for her. One evening, Adrian sat beside her. "What are you reading?" he asked. "A story about a girl who wanted to find her family," Lena replied. Adrian asked gently, "Do you miss your parents?" Lena nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "Every night. I talk to them in my head. I tell them I'm okay, but sometimes I'm not." Adrian placed his hand on her shoulder. "It's okay to miss them. They would be proud of you for surviving." Lena whispered, "I wish they could see me now. In this house. With warm food." Adrian's chest tightened. He rarely showed emotions, but her pain was too real to ignore. "From now on, you're not alone, Lena. Remember that." Days passed. And Lena began to feel more comfortable. She played with the dog, read books, and even helped Mrs. Green in the kitchen. She laughed more often now, and her shy smile appeared more easily. One night, while Adrian worked in his study, Lena knocked on the door. "Can I come in?" she asked. "Of course." She walked in, holding a piece of paper. "I drew something. Do you want to see?" Adrian nodded. She showed him a drawing of a big house with many children inside. There were beds, tables with food and books on shelves. On top, she had written Home of Hope. Adrian stared at the drawing. "This is beautiful, Lena. Is this your dream shelter?" "Less," she said eagerly. "If I had a place like this, I wouldn't have been so cold. No one should feel like I did." Adrian folded the paper carefully and placed it on his desk. "Then Home of Hope it is. We'll make it real." Lena's eyes widened. "Really? Really?" Adrian confirmed. The next week Adrian attended the city council meeting. He presented his plan, a shelter for homeless children. Safe, warm, with food, medical care, and schooling. Not temporary beds, but a foundation for their future. "I will fund it personally." Some council members looked doubtful. One asked, "Why such a project, Mr. Cole? Your business is luxury, not charity." Adrian's voice was steady. "Because luxury means nothing if children freeze outside while dogs sleep in comfort." I refuse to ignore that any longer. The room fell silent. The council finally agreed to support the plan, providing land for the shelter. When Adrian returned home, Lena was waiting by the door. "How was the meeting?" she asked. Adrian smiled. "The land is approved. Construction will begin soon. Home of Hope is no longer just a drawing." Lena ran forward and hugged him tightly. For a moment, Adrian was speechless. He had spent years surrounded by wealth, but nothing had ever felt as real as that hug. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace, Lena asked, "Do you think people will care about children like me now?" Adrian replied firmly, "They will. Because we will make them see. Your voice will reach them through me." Lena smiled. "Then I won't be just a street child anymore." Adrian shook his head. "You never were just a street child, Lena. You were always a fighter. And now, you're a symbol of hope." She leaned against him, her eyes closing. For the first time in her life, Lena felt safe enough to dream of tomorrow. And for the first time in his life, Adrian felt he was finally doing something truly meaningful. Construction for the shelter began quickly. Adrian had chosen one of his company's empty properties at the edge of the city. The building had strong walls but was unused for years. Now, workers filled the place, painting walls, fixing roofs, and bringing in furniture. Adrian visited the site often. Each time he stood there, he remembered Lena's drawing, Home of Hope. He wanted every detail to match her dream. Beds for the children, a library, a kitchen, even a playground. Lena sometimes came with him. She wore her new blue coat and walked through the half-built rooms, her eyes wide with excitement. "Will children really live here?" she asked. "Yes," Adrian said. "Soon, they will be safe here." She touched the walls with her small hands, as if she was blessing the place. "I can't wait." One afternoon, Adrian met with his managers at the construction site. "Everything must be ready in 3 months," Adrian instructed. One manager replied, "Sir, the cost is higher than expected." "Are you sure about this investment?" Adrian looked straight at him. "This is not an investment. It's a duty. Money is useless if it doesn't change lives. Finish the work on time." The managers nodded, realizing he would not compromise. At home, Lena had started keeping a diary. She wrote about her days, about the dog, about Adrian, and about her hopes. One night, she showed it to him shyly. "Do you want to read it?" she asked. Adrian opened the diary and saw simple sentences. "Today I ate warm soup. Today I read a new storybook. Today I saw children laughing at the park and wished they could come to our shelter." He closed the diary gently. "Lena, these words are powerful. One day, you can share them with the world." She tilted her head. "Will people listen to me?" "They will," Adrian said firmly. "Because your story is real. It cannot be ignored." As weeks passed, Lena grew healthier. Her cheeks filled, her eyes shined brighter, and she spoke with more confidence. She started helping Mrs. Green in the kitchen, and even taught herself to write better by copying words from books. One evening, while Adrian worked late, Lena prepared a small surprise. With Mrs. Green's help she baked cookies. When Adrian entered the dining room, she placed a plate in front of him. "I made these," she said proudly. Adrian tasted one. It was a little burnt but he smiled. "Delicious. Thank you, Lena." She laughed. "You're lying." "But I'll get better." Adrian chuckled softly. He hadn't laughed like this in years. The day came when Adrian invited the press to visit the construction site. Reporters stood with cameras waiting for him to speak. Adrian brought Lena with him, holding her hand. "This is Lena," he said to the crowd. "Her words changed my life. One night she told me, 'Your doghouse is warmer than the street.' I could not ignore that truth. No child should suffer like her. This shelter, Home of Hope, will open its doors soon. It will give children safety, education, and love." The reporters wrote quickly, snapping photos of Adrian and Lena. For once the headlines were not about profits or luxury, but about compassion. Later, as they drove home, Lena looked at him with wide eyes. "You told everyone about me." "Yes," Adrian said. "Your story will help others. You gave me the courage to act." Lena whispered, "I'm glad." But not everyone was happy. Some of Adrian's business partners thought he was wasting money. One evening, during a private meeting, a man said, "Adrian, you're a businessman, not a savior. Charity won't make profits." Adrian's jaw tightened. "I've had enough profits. Now I want purpose." Another partner added, "You will lose respect in the corporate world." Adrian leaned forward. "Respect built on greed is worthless. If you cannot support this, then step aside." Silence filled the room. The men realized Adrian was unshakable. Back at the mansion, Lena overheard Adrian speaking on the phone. She walked in after he finished. "Are people angry because of me?" she asked softly. Adrian knelt beside her. "No, Lena. They are angry because I chose humanity over money. But don't blame yourself. You showed me the truth. This is my decision." Tears filled Lena's eyes. "I don't want you to suffer because of me." Adrian gently wiped her tears. "You gave me strength, not suffering. Never forget that." For one night, snow began to fall again, just like the evening when Adrian first saw Lena. She stood by the window, watching the flakes cover the street. "I used to sit outside in this cold," she whispered. "Sometimes I thought I wouldn't wake up in the morning." Adrian joined her, his voice low. "And now I feel warm, safe, I even dream again." Adrian nodded slowly. "And soon, many more children will feel the same." 3 months later, Home of Hope was ready. The building stood tall and bright, painted in cheerful colors. Inside, rows of clean beds, a library filled with books, a kitchen with long tables, and a small playground waited for the children. The grand opening was held on a sunny morning. Adrian stood with Lena by his side. Dozens of children entered the shelter, their eyes wide with wonder. Some laughed, some cried, and some clung to each other, not believing it was real. Lena watched them with tears in her eyes. "They don't have to be cold anymore." Adrian placed his hand on her shoulder. "No, they don't. Because of you." The crowd clapped as Adrian cut the ribbon. Cameras flashed, but for Adrian, the real picture was the smile on Lena's face as she welcomed the children inside. At that moment, he knew his life had truly changed. The opening of Home of Hope became the talk of the city. Newspapers printed headlines about the rich CEO who had built a shelter for homeless children. Some people praised Adrian for his compassion, while others said it was just a publicity stunt. But Adrian did not care about opinions anymore. What mattered was that children now had a warm place to sleep. Lena visited the shelter almost every day. She helped the younger children settle into their new rooms. She showed them how to use the library and sat with them during meals. The children liked her quickly because she understood them. She knew the pain of sleeping hungry, the fear of being cold, and the sadness of being alone. One evening, as Adrian walked through the shelter, he saw Lena sitting with 2 small boys. They were both crying softly. "What happened?" Adrian asked. "They miss their parents." Lena explained. "I told them I miss mine too. But I also told them this place is safe. I said we are all a family now." Adrian felt proud. Lena was not only healing herself, she was helping others heal. At the mansion, Lena's life also began to change. Adrian had hired a private tutor to teach her. Every morning she sat at a desk, learning math, reading, and writing. Though she struggled at first, she worked hard. One day, Adrian asked her, "Do you like studying?" Lena smiled. "Yes. I feel like I'm catching up on the time I lost. Every word I learn is like a brick for my future." Adrian nodded. "Education is the strongest foundation. Keep building it." He saw her determination, and it gave him hope. But challenges soon appeared. A group of business rivals tried to damage Adrian's reputation. They spread rumors that he was using the shelter for tax benefits or to gain political influence. Reporters asked sharp questions during interviews. One evening, Adrian returned home tired. Lena noticed the lines on his forehead. "Is something wrong?" she asked. "People are questioning my reasons." Adrian admitted. "They think I built the shelter for selfish goals." Lena frowned. "But that's not true. You did it for the children." "Yes. But sometimes the world refuses to see the truth." Adrian replied. Lena thought for a moment, then said, "Then let the children speak. Their smiles will prove everything." Her words gave Adrian strength. He realized he didn't need to defend himself with arguments. The shelter itself was the answer. The next week, Adrian organized a community event at Home of Hope. Parents, teachers, and citizens were invited to see the shelter. Children performed songs, read short stories, and showed their artwork. Lena stood on stage and gave a short speech. "I was once on the street," she said clearly. "I was cold, hungry, and alone. But then someone gave me a chance. This place is proof that no child should be forgotten. If I can stand here today, it means every child has hope." The audience clapped loudly. Many had tears in their eyes. Adrian watched from the side, proud of her courage. After that day, the rumors slowly faded. People began to believe in the shelter's purpose. Donations even started coming in from citizens who wanted to support the cause. At home. Adrian and Lena often spent evenings talking. She told him about the stories she read in her books, and he told her about the challenges of running a company. One night, Lena asked, "Do you ever feel lonely, Adrian?" He paused. "Yes. Success surrounded me with people, but most of them only wanted something from me. True connections were rare. Until you came." Elena looked at him quietly, then said, "I don't feel lonely anymore. You're like the father I wished for." Adrian's heart trembled. No one had ever called him that before. He placed his hand gently on her head. "And you're like the daughter I never knew I needed." From that day, their bond grew even stronger. Meanwhile, the shelter kept expanding. Adrian hired teachers, counselors, and doctors to take care of the children. The place was no longer just a building. It was a community. Children who once begged on the streets now studied, played, and laughed. One afternoon, Lena showed Adrian her diary again. She had written, "I am not afraid of tomorrow anymore. I believe in tomorrow now." Adrian read the words slowly, his chest heavy with emotion. He whispered, "That's the greatest success of my life." But not everything was peaceful. One night, when Adrian returned late from a meeting, he found Lena waiting for him in the living room. She looked worried. "What's wrong?" Adrian asked. She held up a newspaper. On the front page was a photo of Adrian shaking hands with a politician. The headline suggested the shelter was just a political move. "Why do they keep saying bad things?" Lena asked. Adrian sighed. "Because some people fear change. They are comfortable ignoring the truth. When someone tries to make a difference, they attack him." Lena clenched her fists. "Then we'll keep proving them wrong. Every child in that shelter is proof." Adrian smiled faintly. "You're stronger than many adults I know, Lena." One weekend. Adrian took Lena to visit the countryside outside the city. The fresh air, green fields, and quiet roads were a new experience for her. "It's so open here," she said, spreading her arms. "I can breathe better." Adrian nodded. "I used to come here when I was younger. It reminds me that life is bigger than buildings and business." They sat under a tree, watching the sunset. Lena asked softly, "Do you think my parents can see me now?" Adrian looked at the sky. "If they can, they must be proud. You've turned your pain into strength." Lena leaned against him, whispering, "I hope so." Back in the city, Adrian received news that warmed his heart. Several companies offered to partner with Home of Hope. They wanted to build more shelters in other cities, using Adrian's model as an example. When he told Lena, her face lit up. That means more children will be safe. Yes, Adrian said. Your dream is spreading. Lena hugged him tightly. Then we'll never stop. Adrian knew then that this was no longer just his mission. It was their mission. That night, as the mansion grew quiet, Adrian stood by the window again. He remembered the first time he had seen Lena, cold, hungry, whispering about the doghouse. That moment had changed everything. Now she was inside, warm and safe, dreaming of a future. And through her, hundreds of other children were finding hope too. Adrian whispered to himself. Your words saved me, Lena. More than I saved you. And he believed it with all his heart. The success of Home of Hope brought joy. But it also brought new responsibilities. Every week, more children arrived at the shelter. Some were abandoned, others had lost parents. And some had run away from abusive homes. Each child carried a story, and each story was heavy. Adrian visited often, making sure the staff treated every child with care. He didn't want Home of Hope to become just another cold institution. He wanted it to feel like family. Lena always went with him. She sat with the children, played with them, and listened to their fears. One afternoon, a small girl named Mia refused to eat. She sat in the corner, hugging her doll tightly. Lena walked over and knelt beside her. What's wrong? Lena asked softly. Mia whispered. I think if I eat too much, there won't be enough left for others. Lena smiled gently. There will always be enough here. Adrian promised. And he keeps his promises. Mia looked unsure. But when Lena took a bite first, Mia slowly began to eat. Adrian watched from the doorway. He realized Lena was becoming more than a resident of his house. She was becoming the heart of the shelter. At home, Lena's education improved quickly. Her tutor praised her for being a fast learner. One day, she proudly showed Adrian a page filled with neat handwriting. Look, I wrote an essay, she said. Adrian read it. It was titled What Hope Means to Me. She wrote about her life on the street, about the cold nights, and about the moment Adrian had invited her inside. She ended with the line, hope is when someone believes you are worth saving. Adrian's eyes grew moist. He put the paper down and said, this is more powerful than anything I've ever read. One day, you should publish your words. Lena shook her head shyly. Maybe when I'm braver. You're already brave, Adrian replied. But not everything was easy. Running the shelter required constant money. Adrian had promised to fund it himself, but the costs grew higher each month. Food, teachers, doctors, clothes, it all added up. One evening, his financial advisor warned him. Sir, if you continue at this pace, your profits will shrink. Investors are becoming nervous. Adrian leaned back in his chair. Let them be nervous. I didn't start this to get richer. I started this to make a difference. But the board may revolt, the advisor said carefully. Then I'll face them, Adrian replied firmly. That night, Adrian sat alone in his study, staring at Lena's drawing of Home of Hope. Doubts tried to creep into his mind. Was he risking too much? Could he really balance business and charity? Just then, Lena entered quietly. Why are you still awake? Adrian forced a smile. Just thinking. She walked over and placed a small note on his desk. Read this before you sleep. After she left, Adrian unfolded the note. It said, you gave me a chance. Now give yourself a chance too. Don't stop. Adrian held the paper for a long time. Her faith in him was stronger than his doubts. He decided then, no matter the cost, Home of Hope would survive. The next week, Adrian faced the board of directors. As expected, they were unhappy. Your focus on the shelter is affecting our growth, one member argued. We are losing deals because you look more like a social worker than a businessman, another added. Adrian listened patiently, then stood. I built this company from nothing. I know the value of profit better than anyone. But I also know profit without purpose is empty. If you think I will abandon those children for a bigger number on paper, you don't know me at all. The room was tense. Finally, Adrian said, anyone who disagrees is free to leave the company. But I am staying the course. The directors exchanged nervous glances. None dared to resign. Adrian's authority was too strong. Meanwhile, Lena continued to grow in confidence. She started helping the tutor teach younger children at the shelter. She even began writing short stories for them. The children loved her gentle way of explaining things. One day, a boy asked her, Why do you care so much about us? You could live in the mansion and forget about us. Lena smiled softly. Because I was you once. And I don't want anyone to feel alone the way I did. Adrian overheard those words, and his chest swelled with pride. But life tested them again. One cold evening, the shelter received a call. A group of children had been found sleeping under a bridge. The police asked if Home of Hope could take them. Adrian and Lena rushed to the site. The children were shivering, their faces pale. Adrian immediately arranged transportation. Lena knelt beside a boy who looked no older than 6. Don't be afraid, she whispered. You're coming with us. You'll be warm tonight. The boy clung to her hand as if she was his lifeline. When they reached the shelter, the new children were given blankets, food, and a place to sleep. Watching them eat, Adrian felt a deep satisfaction. This is why we exist, he said quietly. Lena nodded. Yes. Every child we save makes the world lighter. That night, back at the mansion, Adrian poured himself a glass of water, and sat near the fireplace. Lena joined him, holding her diary. Can I read something to you? She asked. Of course. She opened a page and began. Today I saw children find safety. I saw fear leave their eyes. I realized hope spreads like fire. One small flame can light up a dark night. Adrian closed his eyes, listening carefully. When she finished, he said, Lena, you are that flame. She looked at him surprised. Me? Yes, Adrian said. You started all this with one sentence. You changed me, and now you're changing the world. Lena's eyes glistened. I just wanted to survive. And you gave survival a new meaning. Adrian replied. As the months passed, Home of Hope became a model for other cities. Leaders and citizens visited, learning how to create similar shelters. Adrian's vision was spreading faster than he had imagined. But in his heart, he knew none of it would have happened without Lena. She was not just a rescued child anymore. She was his partner in purpose. One evening, as they stood in the garden, Adrian said, Lena, do you know what you've become? She shook her head. You are hope itself, he said softly. And I am grateful every day that I met you. Lena smiled, and for the first time in her life, she believed that her existence truly mattered. The seasons changed again. The city that once ignored its homeless children now whispered about hope. Home of Hope had become more than a shelter. It had become a symbol. Children who once lived in fear now laughed in classrooms. They painted pictures, played in the yard, and learned to dream again. Every corner of the shelter carried life. Adrian visited often, but this time he wasn't alone. Lena stood beside him as an equal. She was no longer the frightened girl hiding under a doghouse. She was a leader. One morning, a reporter visited the shelter for a final interview. Mr. Adrian, he asked, what inspired all this? Adrian looked at Lena. It was her. One evening. She told me words that shook my soul. Your doghouse is warmer than the street. That truth changed me forever. The reporter turned to Lena. And what do you hope for now? Lena smiled, her voice steady. I hope no child ever has to say those words again. I hope every child feels safe, warm, and loved. That is my dream. The reporter nodded, clearly moved. That night, Adrian and Lena walked through the shelter together. They saw children sleeping peacefully under warm blankets. Look at them. Adrian whispered. This is the real wealth. Lena nodded. Yes, not money. Not buildings, hearts. Hearts that are no longer broken. They walked outside. The sky was filled with stars, brighter than Adrian had ever noticed. Lena looked up and whispered, do you think my parents can see me now? Adrian placed a hand on her shoulder. If they can, they must be proud. You've turned pain into purpose. You've saved lives. Lena's eyes shined with tears, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of peace. The next morning, the shelter held a small celebration. Children sang songs, danced, and gave Adrian and Lena handmade cards. One card had a simple line written in shaky letters, thank you for believing we are worth it. Adrian held the card tightly. He realized his life had come full circle. Once, he measured success by numbers. Now, he measured it by smiles. Before leaving, he stood before the children and staff. When I first met Lena, I thought I was saving her. But the truth is, she saved me. She reminded me that life is about giving, not keeping. Home of Hope is not mine. It is yours. And it will live as long as kindness lives. The children clapped, their voices echoing through the hall. 2. As the sun set, Adrian and Lena walked back to the mansion. The air was cool, but their hearts were warm. Lena held her diary close to her chest. "What will you write tonight?" Adrian asked. Lena smiled. "I will write once, I was cold and forgotten. But now, I am warm, and I belong. And this is only the beginning." Adrian looked at her with pride. "Yes, Lena. This is only the beginning." And together, they stepped into the future, carrying hope that would never fade. Dear readers, thank you for giving your precious time to read this story. Your doghouse is warmer than the street. The rich CEO couldn't believe his ears. This journey showed us that one small truth, spoken by a child, can change an entire life. Hope is powerful, and kindness can create miracles. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts. Your support inspires more stories and keeps this channel alive. With gratitude, the author.